So we're going to show you an application form. Application forms can be quite boring. The subject is a bit dry, but they are one of the most essential parts of recruitment. So we'll show you what we mean when we talk about putting examples into that personal statement area and matching yourself to that essential criteria that's in the job description. Right, everybody. So we're going to have a look at application forms now. As we were saying, probably the most boring parts of applying for a job, but easily the most important, because it's your application form that gets you through to your next stage. So I've just done a little bit of a quick search on the Calderdale Council website on the jobs page, and I've found this role here for a caretaker stroke handy person at Ash Green Primary School. Really nice little job this, actually, if anyone's interested. So I'm having a look at it and I think, yep, this is something that I'd like to apply for. So you can see here the attachments. We've got the job description, the person specification and the application form. So I've opened these. This one is the job description. So very important to have a good read of it. First of all, does it fit with your circumstances? So when you're applying for a job, always make sure that you can actually meet the criteria and that it fits with you, because, you know, if you do get to the next stage, you don't want to be wasting your time or anyone else's time by going through the process. So we're going to have a read of it. Really good hours. Good job this, actually, guys. Key holding and security roles. Yeah, I can work with that. I can do this. Brilliant. Okay, yeah, I've done this before. So I'm going to apply for this job. I think I meet the criteria. Just going to double check though, because if you remember, we were talking about this, and this is the personnel specification. So the job description is really important, of course it is, but this is the important bit that you need to use when you're filling in your application form. So what we're looking at here, above everything else, is the essential criteria. So the first thing you need to do before you do anything else is check this essential criteria. Do you meet it all? If you haven't got some of the essential criteria, then don't apply for the job, because these are the things that you're going to be marked against when that application gets through to that employer and they're shortlisting for interview. So we're going to make sure that we've covered every single one of these essential criteria in our application form. Then we're going to have a look at the desirable, and if we've got some of these, brilliant, we're going to add a bit of that as well. Okay. Sometimes you'll see across here how they identify that you've got these, and you can see application, 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 application. The only thing they check at interview is these things here. So this just shows you how important it is to get a little bit of everything of this essential criteria into your application form. So I'm just going to keep that open if I can, so just bear with me. I'm just going to have the essential there, and then I'm going to go to the application form. Okay, so obviously Felicia and I talked about application forms, but we didn't cover the personal information too much, because you know how to fill that in. That's all your personal data. So work through it, fill it all in. What I would say is don't leave any gaps. You know, I know that it's a bit onerous and a bit tedious, but do make sure you fill in every box if you can, okay? So we're going to scroll down. There's your references. Actually, I'll just cover this a little bit. So with references, they do prefer to have an employer reference, at least one, okay? So make sure that your first reference is your employer. It says there, look, actually. And then your second reference can be academic or a character reference. Character references are usually somebody that you've known, a neighbour, a friend, but you've known them for a long time, quite a number of years. Criminal convictions. I don't know if we covered this, but basically with certain roles, this one's in a school, so they will be exempt from the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. You do need to declare if you've got any criminal convictions. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get a job because you've got a criminal conviction. It does depend on the role, and it does depend on the conviction, of course. But, you do usually get a chance to sit down with an employer and explain the circumstances. There are some serious offences, though, as you can imagine, that may scupper you from getting certain roles. Disabilities. So we're just going to scroll all the way down. Ooh. Don't you just love a council application form? Okay, we're putting in your previous employment. You can use your CV for this bit, actually. You can fill it all in from there. When I say that, actually, sorry, you can't send your CV, but you can copy and paste from your CV into these bits. That's what I meant. Here we are. Right. So this is the bit that we were talking about, the personal statement. So interestingly, it's on page 11, which is a bit further down the application form, which might make you feel that, well, it's not that important. This is really important. This is the first page that an employer will look at when they come to shortlisting. And this is the page where they check you meet all of this essential criteria. So I'm going to start in the box here. Okay, so the first essential criteria is high standards of cleanliness and hygiene. Okay. So what you might put is something like an opening sentence. I have worked within the education sector. Just bear with me with my typing. Worked within the education sector for a number of years, mostly within a manual-based role. Okay, so I'm just sort of thinking now that I might have done some work before. That's why I'm applying for this role, because I've done a similar job before. I've been a caretaker and handy person and a cleaner within a school before. So I'm just using that as a bit of an opener, really, just so it's not going straight into the essential criteria. Okay. So you might put my most recent role. You might just need to change it as you go along if it doesn't start reading properly. Okay, so you've got a little bit of an opener there. Okay, so this is where you can start to lead into things like high standards of cleanliness and hygiene. So you've said there that, you know, my responsibility was maintaining the site, general fixing and ensuring the site was kept clean and tidy. So you've demonstrated that you did have a responsibility for keeping the site clean and tidy. What you might want to put in here is, for example, I would ensure that okay, so you've put in there, for example, I would ensure that I started the day with a walk around of the site, checking that all relevant areas were kept at the right levels of hygiene and cleanliness. So what you're doing there is you're mirroring the language that's in the personal specification. You're giving a very brief example of what you would do to ensure that and ensure your responsibilities were met, but you've mirrored the language, you've copied, you've put hygiene and cleanliness. So when an employer looks at that, they can look at that and go, right, great, tick. They're going to tick that off. You've met that essential criteria with that one sentence. Okay. The next one is ability to undertake minor repairs and maintenance. This one's just a little bit more meat on the bones here. This is going to be quite a big part of the role as a caretaker in a school, so you might just want to give a couple of examples. So let's have a think in a school, a repair. So it could be, let's think about a whiteboard, okay? So the whiteboard's falling off the wall in the classroom, okay? How do we word this? Okay, so have a think about how you word things as well, and don't worry if you get it wrong, because you can go back and tweak it. Often, you might type something in and then go, doesn't quite sound right, I'm just going to change it a little bit, but get it on the page first, and then you can sort out the grammar and everything afterwards. What I'm putting about responsibility is quite important. Did you have responsibility for that? Was it your role to do it? Because again, you're demonstrating that that's your job. I have done this before. I have experience of this. Sorry, that doesn't mean say reactive there. Often repairs would be on a reactive basis. Okay. So again here, so I've opened it up, I've set the scene, okay, I have experience of this. This was my responsibility, and now I'm just going to give an example. And you can use the STAR technique for this as well, where, you're setting the scenario and the task and the action and the result. So for example, teachers would often Okay, so again, you can go back and check that, but it's something like that, I would ensure that I completed the task in a timely manner with the correct tools and to a high standard, always being friendly towards my colleagues as I completed the task. So the example you've given, teachers would often approach me to help them complete a repair in their classroom areas, such as a faulty whiteboard or desk. So, it sounds simple, but you're demonstrating that you've done that kind of thing before. So the maintenance side, you would put a couple of other examples in there as well. So if you've been a caretaker stroke handy person before in a school, you'll have a number of different examples of tasks that you used to undertake in there. So for that particular bit, I would put a couple of good examples in there just to demonstrate that you have done that. The next one is ability to conform to health and safety requirements within a school environment. Okay, so health and safety means quite a lot of things, but particularly in this role, it's your, things like manual handling and things like that. You might have even done a health and safety course. If you have done this kind of role before, you probably have, to be honest. So for this, you would say something like this. Okay, so something like that. And, you might want to beef it up a little bit, with regards some of the other things that you might have done. But what you're suggesting there again is you're mirroring the language. You've mentioned health and safety, and you've given examples of the experience you have in that. So during my day-to-day role, I would always ensure that I adhered to strict health and safety rules at all times. I have completed a yearly health and safety course at level 2, which has allowed me to keep on top of current legislation. I am also trained in safeguarding and understand the importance of being vigilant with both health and safety and safeguarding procedures, especially within a school environment. So you're also mentioning safeguarding there, which within a school specifically, or within any environment where you're working with vulnerable people, safeguarding is always good to mention if you've got experience in that, because you're demonstrating that you understand the importance of it, which you might even get a question at interview based on that, to be honest, for this kind of role. So basically that's how you build your personal statement. A lot of people do come to this page on an application and they've no idea how to fill it in. This is how you fill it in, basically. Do not copy your little personal statement from your CV and paste it in here and think that that's going to be enough, because it isn't. You have to tick all of these essential criteria off. Even to the point where it's things like full driving licence. When you get to that point, you would put, literally, I have a full driving licence. That's it. Basically, to cover that, because that's what they're looking for. The people that are reading this do not know you. They are basing their judgment on this piece of paper, and you have to match yourself to this essential criteria, because if you don't, they don't know that you've got it. They don't know what they don't know. Okay, so work through each one. Then you might want to then have a look at the desirable once you've met the essential criteria. So you would have a look. There you go. Look, you've put in there that you've got your health and safety qualification, so you can already tick that off. You might want to expand on it. So here they're asking manual handling and lifting and ladder training. So that's interesting as well. So the manual handling and the ladder training, if you've done that as part of your health and safety training, pop that in there, put it in here. I've done a health and safety course at level 2, which has allowed me to keep on top of current legislation, and certain checks were covered, such as manual handling and instead of ladder training, I would put working at heights. I think that's the official term for it. So you would just work through it, go back, when you look at these bits and bump it out and go, right, yeah, I'll add a bit of that in there. Yeah, I have got multi-trade skills actually. I did that when I was at college. I did plastering. I'll pop a bit of that in there, All of these things are really, really relevant for this kind of job. So make sure that you get it all in there. It's really, really important. Don't worry about, putting too much in. So that's basically how you build your personal statement. And the good thing about personal statements is, if you're a caretaker, for example, you're probably going to be applying for more than one caretaker role, and you can use it going forward. So once you've got a really good one in place, save it and then use it as copy and paste into other application forms. However, caveat to that, make sure that you're still meeting the essential criteria of that specific job. So you will need to alter it, but the bones of it will be there. You just need to add the meat onto those bones based on that specific job. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And that's it. That's it for application forms, the personal statement.